Hello and welcome to another TLDR Brexit Explained video. Last Sunday, I was scrolling through Twitter, probably getting angry about something, when I came across this tweet by Nigel Farage. Now, as Nigel's a loyal TLDR subscriber, I always give his tweets a little read, but this one had massive alarm emojis, so I clicked to watch before I even knew what I was doing.
You can see right now that Brexit is in great peril.
Turns out Farage and I were actually more on the same page than I'd originally thought, because his video pretty accurately runs through some of the topics I wanted to cover in a video already. So, in this video, we're going to run through some of the things that Farage and others are worried about. The idea that the Brexit that many dreamed of might not become a reality. That Brexit might be getting softer than they liked. Before we do though, this is usually the part when I tell you to subscribe to the channel, and you should definitely do that. Subscribe to them all, go nuts. But as it's November, Team TLDR are proud to be supporting Movember, a charitable organisation that aims to raise money and awareness to change the face of men's health, including prostate cancer, testicular cancer, mental health and suicide prevention. Like many others around the world, our very own animator Alex will be sporting a glorious or perhaps hideous moustache. If you want to support Alex and Movember, there's a link to donate in the description. Or, if you buy a copy of our book, Brexit the Colouring Book, and use promo code ALEX, then you'll get no discount at all, but we'll donate £3 to Alex's Movember fundraiser. Thank you so much for your support. Brexit has very often, and I'd argue inaccurately, been thought of as a binary issue. Either people wanted Britain to become an isolated nation with complete freedom but total separation, or they wanted Britain to merge deeper into the European Union. Even at the most basic level, this assumption is wrong. It pretends there's no grey area at all. People either want a no-deal Brexit, or they want to cancel Brexit altogether. Regular viewers will know this is one of my pet peeves, and that nothing annoys me more than when people say, we voted to leave, so let's just get out without a deal, because it's not true. This incorrectly assumes that everyone who voted for Brexit, all 17.4 million Leave voters, wanted the most extreme form of Brexit, which is patently untrue. Sure, they were given a binary option, stay or leave, but the leave box encompassed a whole variety of opinions and ideologies. That means that the 17.4 million voters are all somewhere on a spectrum between a very soft Brexit and a no-deal Brexit. Pretending all Leave voters wanted no deal is absurd. Leave is clearly a spectrum of views, as is Remain by the way. I mean, even prominent proponents of Leave talked about the ease at which an EU deal could be done, and that a new relationship between the two could be forged. Leave voters were explicitly being told by their leaders that Leave didn't necessarily mean no deal, and they weren't exactly itching for a no-deal Brexit themselves. Now, you might be wondering why that rant was necessary, and you could probably argue that it wasn't. But the idea of the type of Brexit we're heading for is becoming increasingly important. It seems likely at this point that the 16.1 million Remain voters aren't going to be satisfied. Brexit is going to happen. The question is, what kind of Brexit? Now obviously most of these Remainers would rather see something down this end of the spectrum, while more hardcore Brexiteers are hoping for something closer to the no-deal end. And the recent days have spooked people on this end of the spectrum, with many hardcore Brexiteers, including Farage, getting increasingly worried that their dream Brexit might not be coming. Why? Well, let's run through the reasons. The primary reason, and the one that probably holds the most water, is Dominic Cummings. Now, we've discussed this situation before in videos, podcasts, daily briefings, well, everywhere. So let's just make it quick. Essentially, Cummings was the director of Vote Leave, and unsurprisingly, a prominent Brexiteer. When Johnson entered Downing Street, he was so keen to get Cummings on side that he invented a position for him, and Cummings became the chief advisor to the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. This made Cummings Johnson's right-hand man, and put him right at the centre of government, which elated Brexiteers like Farage. This fantasy came to an end though, when Cummings and fellow Brexit boy Lee Kane left Downing Street in short succession last week, leaving a void open in number 10. Now, as Farage explains, he's less concerned about Cummings personally. In fact, he seems to hold some serious resentment and even disdain for the former special advisor.
Now look, Dominic Cummings, to be honest, I never liked the bloke. It wasn't just the scruffiness, it was the fact that he was actually pretty arrogant. And was he a genius? No, not really a genius, but certainly bright. All of it came from the UKIP and Brexit Party playbook, and yet never at any point could he acknowledge that, because that really wouldn't fit the script of genius, would it?
So there's clearly no love lost between Farage and Cummings. Instead, the Brexit leader is concerned about where this leaves Johnson, because without the influence of Cummings, who's whispering in Johnson's ear? It turns out that Farage thinks this is actually a very important question, as he seems to hold the PM in very low regard.
And I say influence because the one thing we know about Boris Johnson, I know personally, is he simply cannot make decisions. He's always worried about short-term unpopularity. A Margaret Thatcher or a Winston Churchill, he most certainly is not.
If the Prime Minister is so persuadable and easily convinced by his advisors, then maybe losing Cummings really is a big blow for the Brexit camp. If he was replaced by someone less committed to the cause, we could easily see the Prime Minister's stance soften, making him more likely to agree to concessions to get a deal with the EU signed. The official line from the government is this isn't true though. Speaking to Sky News, Environment Secretary George Eustace said negotiations have been led by David Frost from the beginning, and he continues to do so. So I don't actually think the departure of Dominic Cummings makes any particular impact on the negotiations, since Lord Frost has been leading those. Another UK official was keen to deny the claims too, saying the PM is the strongest voice in the room on Brexit, and we will only get there if we can agree a deal which respects our sovereignty. Now, it is reasonable to assume that this is partly just the government spinning the narrative, with Brexiteers like Farage warning that Brexit's in danger and that Johnson can't be trusted. They're a real threat to the Conservative Party, with Farage even stating that he thinks this is the beginning of the end for Johnson's premiership. With Johnson's substantial 2019 victory coming primarily from Leave voters in ordinarily red seats, it's pretty understandable that the Conservatives don't want those voters to even suspect a betrayal. Number 10 must therefore be keen to nip this issue in the bud and paint Johnson as a keen defender of Brexit once again, or risk voters returning to Labour or even Farage. The EU's certainly hopeful that these departures could help negotiations though. One EU official remarked that Cummings and Kane not being in number 10 when the UK is deciding on whether to accept a deal could make a difference to rally political support in number 10. However, you do also really have to recognise how little time there is left until the transition period's over. Sure, Farage might say that he'd rather Cummings left in 2021 when this was all over, but honestly, it's pretty much done anyway. Without Cummings' influence, Johnson may be more likely to concede to the EU on some points in order to reach a deal. But we're so close to an exit date that it's hard to imagine anything changing all that much. Another thing that Farage seems worried about is that Johnson's attention is moving away from Brexit, immigration and issues he cares about to, well...
They're going to go green. They're going to go big on greenery. They're going to go big on trans rights. They're going to go big on generally not causing offence to anybody, and I've no doubt taking the knee to BLM and other Marxist organisations. Don't they understand, as Cummings did, that it's the red wall voters, every one of whom previously voted UKIP or voted for the Brexit Party, that gave Boris the majority of 80.
It's unclear whether this is true or not, if Johnson really is losing interest in Brexit. It certainly doesn't seem like he is, but it's clearly a core concern for Farage, seemingly a bigger concern for him than the facts. And I hate to fact check a subscriber, but 1, BLM isn't an organisation, it's a decentralised movement, and regardless, the vast majority of supporters wouldn't identify themselves as Marxist. 2, Johnson's not suddenly deciding to take on a green agenda. It was a prominent element of their manifesto in 2019, which hopefully you read, before standing your party aside for their MPs. And 3, correct me if I'm wrong, but this doesn't make much sense.
Don't they understand that it's the red wall voters, every one of whom previously voted UKIP or voted for the Brexit Party, that gave Boris the majority of 80.
How can all of the Red Wall have voted for the Brexit Party before moving to the Tories when the Brexit Party never even existed before the 2019 election? Anyway, time will tell whether these fears are justified or not. If, in Farage's words, Johnson is attempting to become cuddly and acceptable in London, or if he's just as committed to Brexit as ever. What do you think though? Are you more concerned that Brexit isn't going to go the way you wanted and that a real Brexit might not happen? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. If you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that's in the description.